sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Cam Dantzler was inactive last week. Just where is he at in his career, in your opinion? What does he need to do to get back on the field on Sunday?
First thing, he's got to play special teams. I mean, if you're a backup player, you play special teams.
Oh, daggers. I mean, it's a third round pick. Go play punt coverage.
He is so deep in the doghouse they can't even find him.
You know what, though, gentlemen? Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday. What if I told you?
Speculation.
Now, some of it might be Harrison hand injury related. He popped up on the injury report on Wednesday. But what if I told you guys that if I had to bet, I would not bet significant money, but if I had to bet, Cam Dantzler active on Sunday.
Oh, look at Doogie. That's the voice of Darren Doogie Wolfson from 5 Eyewitness News. Reckless Speculation Thursday and inside information about your favorite sports teams just like that.
Reckless Speculation.
Yeah.
But can you play special teams on Sunday? That's the key question to Zim, because if you can't, you're useless to him.
Is he hinting that Cam Dantzler is refusing to play special teams?
No, he's saying he's not good enough to do it yet.
He's not refusing to play.
I was going to say, that seems a little aggressive
that he's
for
not,
a third-round pick.
But the problem is there's times when Chris Boyd has to play cornerback where it feels like he's refusing to cover guys. And so I think I might give Cam Dantzler a chance to play special teams, because Chris Boyd, as much as Zimmer loves him, and he does, he gets singled out every single time he's out there.
Yeah. So, all right. So week 1 was a mess, and I think everyone's looking at the schedule now, and they saw the performance the Cardinals put up, and it's like any optimism that people had going into week 1 is now very, very tempered here. So Doogie, I'm just going to ask a broad question to start out with. What are you sensing and hearing from inside the Vikings practice facility after that week 1 loss?
Well, certainly the pressure's on. The pressure's always been on, but now it's ramped up that much more. They certainly internally are aware of all the 0-2 notes going back many, many years. Now, one could argue some of those 0-2 start notes, do you toss them out the window because of the 17-game schedule? Do things change 17 games compared to the traditional 16 games? But everybody internally is aware of how hard it is, even though they haven't played a home game yet. And they certainly feel confident that last year was a mirage, no fans, the losing record last year at home, that they feel like this year they will have a winning record at home. I mean, I think internally they feel like they should win at least 6, if not 7 of the 8 home games. But they are well aware, Phil, of the 0-2 notes, that if you start 0-2, go back a couple decades. If you start 0-2, there is a very, 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 very good chance you do not make the playoffs. So, yeah, I think it's a bit aggressive, a bit too early to suggest Sunday is a must-win. But I'm just telling you, they are aware of what history suggests.
So, Dukes, I think that there would be some things that happened in week 1 that might be called a blip, and they can be, and, fans are saying, well, just wait for week 2 and see if that improves. I think we can all agree one thing that's not a blip is left tackle. Rashad Hill is a career backup, and that's what he is, which is fine. He is going to be asked to, I'm sure with some help, face Chandler Jones on Sunday. But the point being is Christian Darrisaw was drafted 23rd overall by this team to play that position. What are we hearing and just recklessly speculating on Darrisaw's return? Because we've said possibly post-bye week, and now I've heard it might be before that. And if he can play, you probably need to get him in there.
Well, yeah. I mean, Judd, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, when is the logical time? We know that Christian Darrisaw is going to get in there at some point, but would you wait all the way until the bye? Then coming out of the bye, now things changed with the DeMarcus Lawrence news on Wednesday that he in all likelihood will not play against the Vikings in that late October game. But I thought, like, would you make the transition coming out of the bye when your left tackle has to face a really good pass rusher? But yeah, Rashad Hill, yeah, that was worse than I expected on Sunday. And yeah, I mean, he is going to have all sorts of help against Chandler Jones. But yeah, I mean, could we see him as soon as week 3, week 4? I think the sticky wicket is, like, he didn't play in the preseason. Like, how much can you replicate in practice to simulate, in-game snaps for him, what he really will be facing. Let's say he's in there week 3 against Seattle at US Bank Stadium. Like, how much can you really simulate for him to get him in the frame of mind that, okay, it's go time. Like, you are the left tackle. I'll add another note. They had a healthy opinion pre-draft on Rashawn Slater. Like, I don't know if you saw the video. And again, I get it. 1 week. I understand that. But if you watch that Chargers-Washington football team, all 22, whatever it is, any game video from that particular tilt, Rashawn Slater looks really, really good. And certainly the Vikings had interest in moving up for Justin Fields, but they also explored the possibility of moving up for Slater. How much different would this conversation be if they had ended up with Rashawn Slater?
Yeah, it's tough because we haven't seen Darrisaw. We haven't even seen him practice in full team in training camp. So it's easy to sit here right now and be like, oh well, they messed up the pick or whatever. We won't know until he plays.
They didn't mess up the pick, Phil. We can't say that, right? We need to see him out there first. I mean, they certainly didn't think coming off the first groin surgery in January that we would be sitting here now talking about him coming off a second surgery in the same calendar year. I mean, I don't think they foresaw him needing yet another procedure done in the month of August. So that's unfortunate. But we can't sit here and say a horrible pick, anything like that. Like, I think everything they thought pre-draft when they walked out of TCO Performance Center that late Thursday night after the first round of the draft, they felt like, hey, we've got our left tackle for multiple years. I still feel like they feel that way. We just need to see him out there.
So here's another question for you, Dukes, and Judd, chime in here too. The Vikings spent all offseason and basically every cent that they had in their pocket for free agency on fixing a defense that was terrible last year. And so with new guys coming in and with guys like Danielle Hunter and Michael Pierce, who were out last season, coming back, this is a group that largely hasn't played together. And so I'm not that surprised they gave up a bunch of rushing yards. Like, I wasn't expecting them to come out and just be the Williams wall from 12 years ago or the 2017 defense. Whatever the peak looks like for this defense, we're probably going to have to wait until like mid-October to really have everything come together. I think, A, is that a fair thought? And B, my worry is because they lost the first game that they might wind up being so stuck schedule-wise and record-wise by the time their defense peaks. Like, they don't have time against the Cardinals and Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson and Kevin Stefanski and the Browns. Like, they don't have time to just sort of figure things out and then start 0-4. What are your thoughts on the Vikings defense, and what are you hearing, Dukes?
Exactly what you're laying out there, Phil. I think it's safe to say that expecting a ton week 1 with all these new pieces, that might have been a bit aggressive. But yeah, you look at the schedule, we don't have until mid to late October. At that point, what if they are 2-5?
Yeah.
2-6, 3-5, whatever it might be. Like, I don't know how you dig out of that sort of hole to be one of the 7 playoff teams in the NFC. And we talk about, fans, all that about, expectations for them to get to double-digit victories, because I think you need to get to 10 to make the playoffs this year, most years, but I think certainly this year. I can just tell you this. Internally, the expectations are higher than any of us are talking about.
Really?
Like, they really feel like they've assembled a roster that can make a significant run in January. Maybe they're delusional, but I'm just telling you, they really feel like they have a roster that can make a serious run in the postseason.
Okay. I'm glad. Judd's been saying it all offseason. No excuses. This is the team that you've spent 7 years and then 4 years of Kirk Cousins building this thing up. This is what the product is, and it's time to go.
A defensive coach got his way almost completely on retooling a defense that was bad. So yeah, I think that the Wolves' expectations, starting with people that own this team, is incredibly high, and it should be, and that's why it's weird that the offensive line. Like, I really thought initially Wyatt Davis was drafted to play, and that it would take an injury for him not to play, and he's not playing now. So there definitely are some decisions that have been made that are odd. On Anthony Barr, I'm hearing game time decision again, and that might be important because Nick Vigil, who played well in the opener, has now shown up on the injury report himself, Dukes, what are you hearing defensively about who might come back on Sunday and what's going on there?
Well, I can tell you that going back, 7 to 10 days, maybe more, that they really felt like for sure they would have Anthony Barr against Kyler Murray. That they felt like, okay, if we don't have Anthony against Cincinnati, we'll compensate. But we need him out there against Kyler Murray. We need him out there against Russell Wilson. Now, if he doesn't practice today after not practicing on Wednesday, that will be a telltale sign, right? Like, we need to see the injury report later today. I think if he's limited today, if he does anything today, okay, tomorrow, let's see how he wakes up. How sore is he? But I think if he does anything today, that we trend maybe more toward that 55% likelihood, like you're talking game time decision. So we can go with the, literal 50-50, but I might trend it more toward 55, put it a little past 50 if he's able to do anything in practice today. Let me add one more talking point from what Phil brought up. Danielle Hunter hadn't played that many snaps in a really long time. I would keep an eye on his situation. Andre Patterson admitted on Wednesday that he should have gotten Stephen Weatherly more snaps against the Bengals, that they felt like they played Hunter a bit too much. So I would keep an eye on Hunter. I'm not suggesting like he's out for Sunday. I'm not to that point anything crazy like that, at least right now. But I just don't know if he's in a position to be playing 60 to 65 snaps against Kyler Murray.
That's interesting. I know we got some Wolves stuff we're going to get to here in a second. I have one more Vikings thing, and I don't know if you have any intel on it, or if you don't, that's okay. We'll just take your educated speculation or thoughts. Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins apparently sat down to watch film together for the first time in 4 seasons like a week and a half ago. I knew that they didn't have an amazing relationship and that Mike Zimmer likes to outsource offense. That's still shocking to me. And we're going to play a clip from Chuck Pagano on Purple Daily today. So just to tease there. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you there, Declan. We'll do that on Purple Daily. But what are your thoughts on that, Doogie?
Well, my thoughts are that Mike Zimmer for years has deferred big time to whether it was Norv Turner, Gary Kubiak, that he really feels like with some of the offensive minds they've had in the building, or I guess, right now virtually, to some extent. Although Gary, I don't think Gary is a huge sounding board for Clint, but certainly Gary and Clint have some conversations. Then you've got Dennison, whatever his exact role is. But, Mike's felt like he's had, some senior leadership in the building that he can defer oftentimes. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was at Kirk's suggestion, not Mike's suggestion.
Yeah. If it was up to Mike,
we should do this.
Dude, if it was up to Mike, they would never watch film together. That's amazing. Like good on Kirk for finally saying, dude, can we sit down?
I agree. Why not? I mean, Mike is, I don't think there's much debate. Mike is brilliant when it comes to being a defensive mind. Why not get his perspective? Yeah, I was surprised to hear that over the last handful of years that this was the first time they had done this. One other thing I had brought up last week, I was going to monitor after week 1. Could the Vikings add a veteran safety like Will Parks, without having to guarantee his contract? So would they look to bring him in this week? They have not inquired. So nothing hopping right now on the Vikings Will Parks steam. And when I say steam, I mean they had free agent interest this past March. They had free agent interest March of 2020. They put a waiver claim in on him last year when his team, I forget which one, he's bounced around a good amount, but whatever team he was on middle of last season, let him go. The Vikings did put a waiver claim in then. So he's a safety the Vikings have had a bunch of interest in, but he's sitting out there on the market right now. The Vikings have not made any sort of offer.
Timberwolves steam, sir. What you got for us?
Well, I mean, yesterday, Wednesday, they introduced 5 guys, announcing the re-signing, formally after they passed, physicals, did all that, flew into town. They introduced, Leonardo Bolmaro, Taurean Prince, Patrick Beverley, and then, announced formally the deals being done with Jordan McLaughlin, Jared Vanderbilt. So Jordan McLaughlin, 3 years, $6.48 million, $2 million in the first year. The third year is a team option. That is a Gerson Rosas staple. All right, so Gerson Rosas can say he won that negotiation by having the hammer in that third year. Same with Jared Vanderbilt. Not quite the same, but Jared Vanderbilt, third year, so it's 3 years, slightly below $14 million. I think there's pretty good value there for the former McDonald's All-American. But the third year is partially guaranteed. It is not a full guarantee. Now, if Jared Vanderbilt lives up to expectations, he'll make all that money in the third year. Bolmaro excites some people. He's more an off guard. He is not a point guard. I don't anticipate seeing Bolmaro on the ball a bunch. Beverley, brought up what he tweeted a week or so ago. I brought this up with Chris Finch at the State Fair a couple weeks ago that he's been in the league now, 8-9 years. He's been to the postseason every single year, and he plans on keeping that streak alive. So Patrick Beverley pretty much declaring, hey, we are going to find a way to at least be the 9 or the 10 seed, get into the play-in tournament. He was also asked about coming off the bench because Patrick Beverley is not going to be a starter. He brought up that he knows he's going to finish games, which I think is accurate. But then you think about the Wolves' finishing lineup. I suppose you could go small ball. You could go Russell, Beverley, Beasley,
Simmons,
Edwards, and Cat.
Towns.
Well, and Cat at the 5, Declan. Yeah, well, I mean, Phil, they're trying, right? I mean, nothing's changed. Since late June, the Wolves have wanted Ben Simmons badly. They still want him badly. The Wolves would love to have Ben Simmons, but it's the same story. It's a fun talker, don't get me wrong, but it's a really, really hard transaction to complete.
Hey, real quick, let's hear from Patrick Beverley because he did speak. Doogie alluded to some of the quotes. Dex has a clip from Beverley here.
I think the offensive schemes that Coach Finch runs complements everybody on the team. As far as fitting in, I played with everybody, so fitting in won't be a problem. I think my biggest focus is seeing how locked in we can be each and every night consistently over a preseason season. And eventually, we do the right things, we get to the playoffs. So, basketball is basketball. That won't change. But everything else in the middle, I think if you can control that, put yourself in a position to win a lot of games.
Doogie, my personal sense, and I'm not reporting anything. This is just my own thought. The fact that they finally went forward with the Patrick Beverley press conference and the Bolmaro press conference, was that an indication that they're just moving into the season now? That they're sort of not done with the Ben Simmons discussion, but that, all right, it's over for now. Like, we've been doing this for 2-3 months. We got to introduce these guys. We got to have Beverley throw out a first pitch at Target Field. Like, Beverley could have been a trade chip to spin in a Simmons trade, and they just introduced him to the public and had him throw out a first pitch. Right?
Well, I mean, he still could be in 60 days or whatever it is, the exact number. You got to wait a little bit, but especially if you're going to aggregate him with some others, which you would need to do to match up salary or come close to matching up salary. They could still do that. I would tell you this much, Phil. They've had that mindset going back a few weeks. Like, I'm just telling you, on background, they would acknowledge, again, not on the record, but on background, that acquiring Ben Simmons has always been a long shot. It just has. As badly as they want him, they realize it's not easy. That there's enough interest, especially if the price comes down. Like, nobody's going to pay what Daryl Morey wants right now. But when, I think it's when, not if, when the price comes down, Morey's going to have a solid 3, 4, 5 offers to choose from, whether that's Cleveland, does Portland re-engage? Does Golden State re-engage? Does Sacramento re-engage? I had Brian Windhorst of ESPN on the Scoop podcast over the weekend. He said he is aware of a small market team that has made an offer that it's not out there. So it's not Sacramento. It's not Minnesota. Is it Utah? Is it Indiana? I don't know. I really don't. But he said there's a team out there, and he said small market that has made an offer, and that team isn't out there. So there's at least one mystery team interested in Ben. I think it's safe to presumably, make the leap that there's at least one more. So we're talking at least 2 teams that really aren't out there publicly that have interest in Ben. So Daryl Morey is going to have multiple offers in which to choose from. That's what makes it really difficult for Rosas to end up with Ben Simmons.
So, Dukes, what's the earliest that we think if a deal is made by the Sixers, it gets made? October, November? Like, what's the prevailing theory about when they basically come to the conclusion, 1, he has to be traded, and 2, we're not going to get what we thought we'd get back in June?
Well, it was a few weeks ago that, they met in L.A., Rich Paul, Ben Simmons, Daryl Morey, Doc Rivers, they sat down and chatted, and it's apparent that it was made pretty clear that Ben doesn't have interest in helping Philadelphia in any capacity, but Wendy suggested, others have, that Ben's not going to report. I don't think he's going to create a sideshow quite like Jimmy Butler, and like that's what's being said right now. But really, when it comes down to it, will Ben truly not report? But that's the buzz right now, that Ben won't even show up for training camp. But Daryl Morey knows that, so like the pressure's on. Joel Embiid, is an injury waiting to happen, right? Like the window is now, with Doc Rivers making a ton of money. You look at the rest of that Philadelphia roster, the time is now. They have some good young pieces. I really like Tyrese Maxey, but like the time is now for Philly to make a significant run. So they need to get some immediate help, not future draft pick compensation help. They need to get some guys that can help them immediately. So at what point does Daryl say, okay, this is a train wreck of a situation. Fine, so be it. Malik Beasley can help us right now. Maybe I'm not the biggest Malik Beasley fan, but he can help us right now. Sure, Jaden McDaniels, can guard multiple positions. There's enough there to like. Or that's where the third team comes in. Is there a third team that really likes Jaden McDaniels that can send some other piece Philadelphia's way? But like I told you, Judd, and I was wrong, but I thought a trade would have happened by draft night because it had gotten so toxic and all the stories are out there. So I just didn't think we're sitting here on September 16th, we would still be talking about Ben Simmons as a Philadelphia 76er, because I just knew, all a lot of the issues, at least, behind the scenes. So I just thought we would get to that point. I still think it's when, not if. He is going to get traded. But I can't tell you, Judd, it's going to be, September 30th, on the eve of Philadelphia reporting for training camp, or it'll be October 8th, sometime before they open up the season, October 19th, October 20th. I can't give you, unfortunately, a definitive date, but I'm just telling you, a Ben Simmons trade is going to happen.
Reckless speculation.
Well, Dukes, we know you got to get going here, so if you have any rapid-fire things you want to throw at us, otherwise we can say goodbye, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, well, I had fun last week over at Braemar Arena, caught up with Eric Stahl. It actually surprises me that he's not on a team right now. The Twin Cities is home base for the former Wild center, so he is awaiting the right opportunity. He does feel like, because teams have reached out to his representation, that he is going to get a decent offer at some point. He's willing to play the waiting game. He's staying in really good shape. I also cut up for a while with Zach Parise. He leaves today to head out to New York. The family is staying here, so that will be difficult. One thing I didn't talk about with Zach on camera, but I got the sense from some dialogue off camera, let's see how the year goes, but this certainly could be the last year for the 37-year-old Zach Parise. One heck of a professional career. So if this is it, if this is the swan song, the final season for Zach Parise, hopefully he can go out with a bang, playing with a really good Islanders team. He's got some close relationships, with guys like Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, who actually lives right down the street from me. Really good dude, who's the captain of the Islanders, coming off a significant injury, but I know Lee is doing well. Also, Ryan Suter down in Dallas. I talked to Bruce Boudreau the other day. Bruce said he knows that Ryan is highly motivated. Ryan can't wait to play the Wild. What is it, 6 times? Judd being in the same division. Also, so Ryan moved his family down there. So Zach left the family here. Ryan moved the entire family down to Dallas. Ryan is going to end up, after signing his 4-year deal, plus $15 million.
Wow.
With the taxes, the way they work in Texas. So the buyout money he gets from the Wild, then the contract he signed with Dallas over these next 4 years, instead of staying here, going to Dallas, he will end up plus $15 million. I would say that eases the blow of his frustration from being bought out here.
Yeah. Also shows you how badly the Wild just wanted to be done with.
Reckless speculation.
All right, Darren Doogie Wolfson, 5 Eyewitness News on the Scoop podcast on scorenorth.com, Apple, Spotify. We'll see you next week, buddy.
All right, boys. Yeah, I'm about to catch up with Mike Bauman, who just made his Major League debut for the Baltimore Orioles. Matamidi High School grad, so another Minnesotan making it to the majors. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Okay,
all right, that's
boys.
Doogie. We'll see you later. And those scoops, powered by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company, helping businesses for over 100 years with risk management, protecting employees, protecting your bottom line. Find out about all the resources and people that can help your business if you are a business owner at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours.